What if there were a country that chose to slow down in a world that never stops? A place where success is not measured by income, but by well-being. Where ancient traditions are not replaced by modern life, but carefully woven into it. And where progress is questioned, not blindly accepted. This is Bhutan. Often described as the last hidden kingdom of the Himalayas, Bhutan has captured global imagination for decades. To many, it represents something rare, an alternative model of living. A nation that dares to ask a question most of the world has forgotten. What does it truly mean to live a good life? At first glance, Bhutan seems almost unreal. There are no traffic lights in its capital. Tourism is tightly regulated through a high-value, low-impact policy. The government promotes a philosophy known as Gross National Happiness, or GNH, an index that evaluates well-being across psychological health, environmental sustainability, cultural preservation, and good governance. It sounds ideal, almost utopian. But behind that image lies a far more nuanced reality. Bhutan is a small, landlocked country nestled between two global giants, China and India. Its geography is dramatic: steep mountains, deep valleys, and remote villages that remain difficult to access even today. This terrain has historically shaped not only its isolation, but also its identity. For centuries, Bhutan remained largely cut off from the outside world. This isolation was not accidental. It was intentional, a strategic decision to protect its culture, religion, and social structure from external influence. Until the late 20th century, Bhutan had no television, no internet, no exposure to the relentless flow of global media. It wasn't until 1999 that both television and the internet were officially introduced. In less than a generation, Bhutan transitioned from relative isolation to digital connectivity. And that transition changed everything. Today, if you walk through Thimphu, Bhutan's capital, you will see a striking contrast. Young people scrolling through smartphones, engaging with global culture, following trends from across the world. At the same time, just a few steps away, you might see an elderly man turning a prayer wheel, whispering ancient mantras that have remained unchanged for centuries. This coexistence of old and new defines Bhutan. Traditional dress, go for men and kira for women, is still worn in schools, government offices, and public ceremonies. Architecture is strictly regulated to preserve a distinct national aesthetic. Even modern buildings must reflect traditional Bhutanese design. These are not mere cultural gestures. They are deliberate efforts to preserve identity in the face of globalization. At the core of Bhutanese life lies Vajrayana Buddhism. It is not simply practiced, it shapes the rhythm of daily existence. Spiritual values influence governance, education, and even economic decisions. Concepts such as compassion, balance, and mindfulness are not abstract ideals, they are embedded into how society functions. But preserving this way of life in the 21st century is not without challenges. Bhutan's economy is small and heavily dependent on hydropower exports, primarily to India. While this provides revenue, it also creates vulnerability. Job opportunities within the country remain limited, particularly for the younger generation. As education levels rise and global awareness increases, many young Bhutanese begin to question their future. Should they remain in a country that prioritizes tradition and environmental preservation, or seek opportunities abroad where economic prospects may be greater? This quiet tension is one of Bhutan's most significant modern challenges. Urban migration is increasing. Rural communities are slowly declining as young people move to cities in search of work. And with this shift comes another concern: the gradual erosion of traditional ways of life. At the same time, Bhutan faces the pressures of globalization. Social media, foreign entertainment, and consumer culture are entering the country at an accelerating pace. These influences are subtle but powerful. They reshape aspirations, redefine success, and slowly challenge long-held values. And yet, Bhutan continues to resist complete assimilation. One of its most remarkable achievements is environmental conservation. The country is constitutionally mandated to maintain at least 60% forest cover, and it has exceeded that requirement. Today, over 70% of Bhutan remains forested. It is the only country in the world that is carbon negative, absorbing more carbon dioxide than it emits. This commitment is not just policy, it reflects a deeper philosophy, that nature is not separate from human life, but inseparable from it. However, even this success comes with complexity. Climate change is beginning to affect Bhutan's fragile mountain ecosystems. Glacial melting poses risks of flooding. Agricultural patterns are shifting. Farmers, who have long depended on predictable seasonal cycles, are now facing uncertainty. In this sense, Bhutan is not isolated from global challenges. It is deeply connected to them. And then there is the concept that defines Bhutan in the eyes of the world: happiness. Gross national happiness is often misunderstood as a claim that Bhutan is a happy country. But in reality, it is not a declaration, it is a framework. A way of measuring development that goes beyond economic output. It includes factors such as mental well-being, cultural diversity, ecological resilience, and community vitality. But happiness is not something that can be guaranteed. Bhutanese citizens still experience stress, anxiety, and hardship. Youth unemployment, rising living costs, and changing social expectations all contribute to a more complex emotional landscape than the country's image suggests. Because happiness, like anywhere else, is deeply personal. It cannot be fully captured by an index. It cannot be standardized. And it cannot eliminate the uncertainties of life. At its core, Bhutan is not a perfect society. It is a society in transition, a nation attempting to balance preservation with progress, spirituality with modernity, and identity with change. And within that balancing act are real people. A young graduate sitting in a cafe in Thimphu, wondering if their dreams can be fulfilled at home. A farmer in a remote valley, continuing traditions passed down for generations while facing an unpredictable climate. A monk in a mountain monastery, dedicating his life to inner peace in a rapidly changing world. Their lives may seem distant, even unfamiliar, but their questions are not. What is the right path? What should we hold on to, and what should we let go? And ultimately, what does it mean to live well? Bhutan does not offer simple answers. Instead, it offers something far more rare, a different perspective. In a world driven by speed, competition, and constant growth, Bhutan chooses caution. It questions the cost of progress. It asks whether development without meaning is truly development at all. And perhaps that is why it continues to be seen as mysterious, not because it is hidden, but because it challenges the assumptions we rarely question. What if success is not about having more, but needing less? What if progress is not measured by how fast we move, but by how balanced our lives are? And what if the true measure of a nation is not its wealth, but the well-being of its people? Bhutan may be a small country, high in the mountains, often overlooked on the world map. But the ideas it represents are vast. It is not a perfect model. It is not without flaws. But it is a reminder that there are other ways to live, other ways to grow, other ways to define what truly matters. And in that sense, the mystery of Bhutan is not something to be solved. It is something to be reflected upon. Because in looking at Bhutan, we may begin to see something unexpected, a reflection of ourselves.